Then let's start about the Shopware PaaS template, or in general. First of all, I will introduce you to the new Flex template, which will be the required one from the next Shopware Major version 6.5. So first of all, the new template that was beforehand the production template is now based on Symfony Flex. Therefore, it is really small in comparison to the production template itself, and has a new feature from Symfony Flex called recipes. In these recipes, there are multiple configurations like administration, what should be done, core, which logger should be enabled, Elasticsearch, where should the Elasticsearch configuration be done, storefronts, and so on. There are also recipes for PaaS and for Fastly, which is a reverse proxy that is currently used from PSH to enable full-size page caching, therefore having a better response time than without reverse proxy caching. So to use this Flex template, we have in our current documentation and guide to maybe possible migrate stuff from the current production template into the new Flex template. But there is also every time the possibility to just use the Shopware Symfony Flex template from start and add your configurations and or your modifications to it. The new project requires Composer to run it. If you create a new project, you just run a Composer create project. In this case, you can then use Shopware production.flex, or you can just run Composer create project in the cloned GitHub repository. You can remove or add the wanted packages or recipes. Just simply use Composer remove or Composer recipe remove. You can modify, like you already did, the end files for example, the Elasticsearch configuration, database configuration, environment, state, and so on. And everything can easily be added or pushed to your own Git, like any other configuration or the production environment. Maybe you forked also beforehand. To update the Symfony Flex, it's relatively easy. You can easily update all the recipes to get all the new configurations. There is the Composer recipes update command, and it will easily merge possible configurations. And if there are merge conflicts, they can easily be resolved with Git conflicts and merging these conflicts together. Update and Composer package is also relatively easy and I think well known. Therefore, just using Composer update, package name and version to change it. You can also change it in the Composer JSON itself and run Composer update in Composer install. And then afterwards, commit your changes to Composer JSON or commit the changes from the Composer JSON and the Composer log to have them later on automatically built in Platform SH and deployed to your instance you want to. Like I already said, there are standard recipes for Platform SH for our PaaS environment and also Fastly, which is the reverse proxy. There are some default configurations included. For example, for Fastly, there are multiple VCL files to have a better integration with Shopware, and also using state caching for full page HTTP cache, and other things like how to invalidate specific pages. Yeah, like every other recipe, they can easily be updated with Composer Recipe update. And this should be done regularly to get the latest config changes and fixes, because we are, as always, able or want to update the configuration and the possible ways to work with PSH and our PaaS partner as good as possible. So the configs should be updated if possible, regularly, to have always the latest changes. Yeah, simply for if you do need to change any type of the config, like it was already set from Remit. There are the routes YAML, the services YAML, and the application YAML. I will later on also go a little bit over it again. You can change the build, the deploy hook in any kind you need, and just commit and push these changes, these recipe changes, to your own Git repository. Yeah, for the platform stage or PaaS recipe, like I said, we have the application YAML. It's the configuration of the environment. Was already said, it has PHP versions, disk size, additional services, mounts, workers, everything defined in there, which later on will then be used for your working environment. And you can also define build and deploy steps, also a post-deploy step, to then do the stuff you need. For example, updating the extensions you have, downloading the extensions you need from the store or any other Composer repository. You can, in the deploy step later on, then perform the migrations when the database is available, and maybe also in the post-deploy step, remove or clear the cache to have a fully new instance, or do any other stuff that needs to be done. In the root YAML, there's a root definition, like Remit also said about how to access the application itself. And in the services YAML, there are the services that are used in the application YAML, like Redis, database, RabbitMQ, OpenSearch. Yeah, to extend Shopware and PaaS, there is the possibility to extend it via Composer with plugin extensions. So like any other Composer Shopware installation, there are Shopware store extensions that can be loaded through our Shopware Composer package library. You can include your own Composer repositories if you have, for example, an extension that is used in multiple custom projects. But you can also just add them to the project-specific Git, for example, in custom static plugins or custom plugins itself. These are defined in the Composer JSON as private repositories, and every extension, every plugin is itself a Composer plugin, a Composer extension. So everything that needs to be done by Composer, except for the apps which are no Composer extension, and these needs to be committed into the custom apps folder. That also is the way for Shopware store app extensions. They also need to be included in the project-related Git. So for PSH Build and Deploy, this was also mentioned before. We have our Git push triggers that triggered the build and deploy process. Redeploy, for example, uses a previous build so that the runtime is faster, and the application YAML will be used in the process to run through so that everything is set up as wanted, and it just goes step by step in the build hook and deploy hook, runs all the scripts you defined, all the commands are executed you defined. And later on, after the build, the shopware should be present, the shopware instance. The complete shopware will be built without database. And after the build is done, everything will be deployed to the server, to the application server. And in the deploy step, like I said, is the possibility to then do database changes. Therefore, database activation state or installation states needs to be done in the deploy hook. And also database migrations done by the core, or also the plugins or any other extension needs to be done in the deploy when the database is available. Like I said, the PSH Build Phase, each app is a project and is built separately. A container is tied to a specific Git commit, and the database is not available, so we need to build it without a database. In the deploy phase, each container is connected to each other and the services are available. The connections are defined in the configuration. You need to update, install, activate, migrate shop extensions. Access to other containers is possible. In this case, the file system is read-only. So also for later on in the production environment and so on, all the system file, or all the file system on every container is read-only. But not everything. If you have a mount, for example, for the var cache files, for example, these will be writable. And in the deploy phase, databases or any kind of services are available. So you need to connect to this database and therefore do the stuff we need to do. Like I said, we need for the build phase a stateless build in Shopware. So we need to use the Composer plugin loader that requires all the plugins we need. We use bin CI instead of bin console, so that the database itself will not be used for building, for example, the JavaScript files with Webpack and so on. Also, the environment variable CI = 1 will be set in bin CI and will be used in the JS build scripts to have a better, to only use the CLI and not the database. And the first run of the Shopware instance, we need some static or some dump variables for the storefront if the Shopware storefront is used. And therefore, for the first time, using platform.sh, there need to be 2 runs to have all the static files in your own Git repository from the storefront, and therefore can be used for the stateless build. Here you can also see some configuration that needs to be done, so that the config loader uses the static file config loader, and the available theme provider is also set as a static file. So in this case, for the first build, like I said, you need to run it twice. First of all, team configs need to be checked into Git. We need to dump these configs in file theme. There is the command platform SSH to the app application, and then run bin console theme dump. Then we can download it to our specific files directory, add it to it, update it, push it, and then redeploy. For the repositories itself, I just opened it in our GitHub. The Shopware production can use simply the 6.5.00 to run it. If you're running currently Shopware 6.4, you can also use the Flex template with the Flex, or in this case, using the Flex environment. But the 6.5.00 will be in the next one, which also includes the current 6.5 RC. Here, like I said, in the composer JSON, there are the repositories defined. So every custom plugins can be required as a composer plugin, and also the custom static plugins. The recipes are based in Shopware recipes, and in here we have multiple recipes to run with Shopware Symfony. The main part is in the Shopware, so we have recipes for administration, core Elasticsearch, and also, for example, the PaaS. In here we have our .platform file and the application YAML, for example, which can be modified by you in your own Git repository. In here, we also see, for example, in the build step or in the deploy step for the first installation, there are some modifications to run that is possible to run or deploy a Shopware itself, that you can use the first build step, and later on you don't have to run this anymore. For Fastly itself, like I said, one of the big advantages also with our PaaS environment, if you're using a full page HTTP cache, there's these configs for the Fastly that there are some ACLs or VCLs that are easily be configured. You can configure it yourself, but these are working with Shopware without any problems at the moment. And also, if you just get the recipe for Fastly, it's also directly set in your configurations that the reverse proxy can be used. You only need the Fastly API token and service ID, and this will then directly run with platform SH.